In my personal opinion, there are a few games that are already good without roll and draw mechanics, roll and write mechanics, that are not even better or very interesting also with roll and draw mechanics. And so I enjoyed Orleans when it came out a couple of years ago. I played it back then, and I was very excited when I saw that now there was a version of Orleans that had a draw and write mechanic. Also, it can be played solo, which is always very attractive to me. And so here we have the draw and write version. Draw because, as you may remember, if you played the original Orleans, the game was, in my opinion, bingo for gamers, which is not a bad thing, meaning that there was a bag of tokens that would get drawn, and then people did things with those tokens. And here we have a bag of tokens that get drawn and that the players will interact with. The tokens represent different kinds of followers, and then you do things with them. The game, as I said, can be played multiplayer and can be played solo against the AI. And each player will have a sheet of paper like this one. This is the side that you use for multiplayer. This is the side that you use for solitaire when you play against Joan. In that case, this is you use this for the stuff that she collects. She also marks stuff on the board. She's taking stuff from you. As for the multiplayer, another thing you see here, this section is optional. You can play using this section, which gives you fixed locations, or you can use variable locations that are represented by these cards, and you draw 4 per kind. There are 5 kinds, 5 levels, and there are extra cards that are not used in a given game, so you're going to have variety here as for which buildings are available. Of course, this is the version that is recommended in multiplayer. Also, it is the version that is mandatory in solo. In solo, you don't have the printed locations. You will always use the cards for the buildings. So you're gonna have your bag of followers, and each round, at the beginning of each round, a number is drawn based on the number of players. And say, for example, both in 2-player and in solo, which are the versions that I play, it's gonna be 5. And then players let's start with the multiplayer, will alternate taking turns. So when it is your turn, you select one of the tokens and then you do something with it. And since this is a draw and write, that doing something means marking different things on your player sheet. Now, with your token, you can do 1 or 3 things. You can use the token for its proper ability, and you have a reminder here. This sheet is very well organized. There's a lot of information, but everything is easy to retrieve and check. So, for example, if I take the knight and I choose to use it for its proper action, it is to build a land connection. We all start from Orleans, and so I would fill in a connection starting from there. Later, I can build connections starting from wherever I have already a connection to. For example, later I could build from there to there. When you build a connection, you will collect also the corresponding resources. So, for example, those two that I just built gave me those 2. When I collect a resource, I mark it there in this section here. If I finish a column, I also get the corresponding advantage there, and the same if I complete a row. Now, some advantages, as you will see here, and this is super important in the game, have that kind of border, like a golden border. Only one person gets it. So if you're the first person to acquire that, you're gonna circle it to indicate that you have it, and everybody else crosses that out on their own sheet. They cannot get that. So that's both for how resources work and also how the knight works. Other professions that you use for their proper use. The farmer will allow you to collect one of these resources, say cheese, because cheese is good. The The carpenter, I believe, will allow you to either acquire a coin, and when you collect a coin, you circle it here with the same idea that completing rows and columns gives you bonuses, including some that, again, only go to the first person. Or you can use the carpenter to spend a coin and to build a trading post to a location that you haven't, well, that you're connected to, and that has not been built into a trading post yet. When you build a trading post by circling it that way, then everybody else crosses that out on their sheet because they cannot do it anymore. The wise person will give you an advancement on the development track, which is here at the bottom, and you will mark these boxes in order from left to right, collecting different types of immediate bonuses, yay, one-time bonus, and also collecting stuff that will allow you to score at the end of the game, such as these golden symbols here. The boatman allows you to collect a coin or to build a water connection, when the same idea that this way you can go to places where maybe you can build trading posts later. You will collect cheese and other good stuff as you go. And then we have the merchant that allows you to collect a coin or to build a location. And remember, the locations, so I should say the buildings really, are represented either by this diagram here or by the cards if you're playing solo or the main game, really. These locations, they do cost money. The cost is indicated here. This one costs 1, for example. That one costs 2. They also have tiers, and so you have 4 cards, level 1, level 2, level 3, and so on. And basically, the first player to build one in the game must build it from level 1. And then anybody else from there, if a level 1 has been built, people can build level 2. If at least a level 2 has been built, somebody can build a level 3, and so on and so forth. So that is for the proper use of the tokens if you just use them for their standard action, I would say. However, there's also this section of a display here, and you can use a follower that you just collected to mark a space in this section here, if you, of course, haven't marked it already. When you mark such a space, then you collect the bonus indicated in that section. That would be that in that case. For that would be that, which is to build a LAN connection. Also, if you mark all of the spaces in one of these areas, you also collect the one-time bonus if, again, you are the first person to do that. That's, remember, the golden border of the bonus. So you see the followers really have a little bit of flexibility there, because you can use them for their default action, for other kinds of actions, for collecting different things. Not just that, 3 times in the game you can just ignore the kind of follower that you had. You mark one of these monks and then you can use that token as any other follower, so even more flexibility. Moreover, remember that we collected these buildings. Why the heck did we do so? Because once you have them, now you can also use a follower of a certain kind to activate a building that requires the follower. So now when I take a knight, I can use the knight for its own proper thing. I can mark a knight there, or since I have this building, I can use that for that ability, which is usually better than the default ability. Otherwise, why the heck would you build a building for it? Here, for example, I build a LAN connection and I acquire a development. I mark a box on my development track. So the general idea, as you can see, the core idea is super simple, because it is collect a token, mark something with it, discard it, next player goes and does the same. And we continue like this until we exhausted the pool. Then we draw more followers. We draw more followers, so we continue until the bag is empty, we refill the bag, and we repeat that a number of times, depending on the number of players. And at the end, we'll score points based on several things, of course, such as the bonuses that we acquired. We This is a big one. This is a big one. We look at the number of trading posts that we built and the number of that kind of bonus that we collected, add them together, multiplied by the level of development that you acquired. And so that's a pretty big thing. And then you collect again those bonuses that you had from those things. This is an area that you mark every time that you would acquire a certain resource, but you already marked them all. You would acquire a coin, but you already had filled up your bank. So basically, you mark a box on this track for surplus of whatever it is that you collect, and that also is good points. So you collect points from every possible source, and the player with the most points wins the game. The solo game, it's like a two-player game. You always use the cards for the locations, and you take your turn as normal, draw things as normal, but then your adversary, the Pucelle, takes her turn. She has this deck of solo cards, and both the back and the front is used. This is really neat idea, because you draw a card, and the back of the card on top there tells you the direction in which she will try to get a token, going from the bottom, in this case with the arrow facing up, or starting from the top, if that is the card on top there. That's really neat. So looking at the followers that are available, suppose these are the ones, she's gonna start looking from the bottom in this case, and there are no knights. Oh, there's a boatman, so that's her action. She takes the boatman. And then, for some of these followers, you will simply mark a box in the corresponding Joan of Arc section there, like so. And also she gets to do other stuff based on that thing. And so say then I take my turn, and then it's her turn again. Now she's again looking from the bottom and starting from the bottom. Then she takes the farmer because of the two that are available. She marks a farmer box there. And then I check, she may get, again, other kind of bonuses, other kind of actions. For example, she may take cards. Remember, that's also why you need those cards there. She may take cards that represent buildings. She may collect stuff. She may collect bonuses, basically simulating. She may build she may build trading posts. So if she does, for example, that's the action, she builds the two. I'm marking now, I cannot build it. So she both collects stuff and removes stuff from you, simulating the effect of other players that usually would be removing one-time advantages and one-time opportunities from you. Play as normal, and then total your points, and then total her points, and you're trying to score more points than she does in order to win the game in the solo version. I like this game. I find it very enjoyable at 2 and also solo. It plays up to 5, and I don't know that I really would want to go all that high. I'm afraid with 4 or 5, downtime may become a problem, and you couldn't really plan ahead and thinking, well, at least while I'm waiting for my turn, I plan my turn and then I execute it quickly because people may be taking the token. So I see how people would have to think about their turn when their turn starts, maybe causing downtime. But haven't played it that way. That's just my feeling and why. Well, I'm happy at 1 and 2, so why risk it? And with two players, then you still have an element of indirect interaction because so many things are just for the first person who gets there. Also, a very important thing is if you create a powerful combo of buildings, then you're going to start spamming that. And of course, you want to prevent the opponent from doing so. So if they built a combo that really works well with merchants or farmers, you may want to figure out if there's a way for you to grab those farmers and still do something good for yourself, because You don't want them to exploit their little engine. So you have some really interesting elements here because you have scarcity in which so many things are only for the first player who gets them. You have an engine building element, that's for sure. You have the draw and write, that is pretty neat. And you have a lot of interesting ways in which those tokens can be used for different things. I really like that. I really like that. Even at the end of a turn, when you have fewer tokens, maybe just one token to choose from, you still feel that you have interesting decisions to make. You're not stuck with like, well, kind of like that turn in which by default you just check out something, you mark something and you're done and there's no interesting decisions. Maybe in a game that will happen once, but I didn't find that that was an element of the story. I felt that, yes, I was having interesting things to do every time. Now, if you're a fan of the original game, of course, a comparison is pretty natural, and you're losing one element, which is the bag building element, which I didn't miss because I felt that I was doing so many interesting things here anyways, so I didn't miss that. On the plus side, the game is just so quick and simple to set up, and that's a huge advantage. Take a sheet of paper, start drawing from the bag. If you're playing solo, you put out 20 cards and that's setup. So that's pretty neat. So I like the general idea, I like the general concept. I was still playing a game that reminded me of that game quite closely, while at the same time giving me a lot of the same experience in a draw and write format, because for whatever reason I'm a huge fan of roll and write, draw and write, draw and draw, roll and draw. Somehow it's just such a strong, visceral, fun thing to write on my game and then get rid of that component. And again, so here, the various layers of the design, the drawing element, the race for limited resources, the engine building, they all felt integrated very well. I like the look of it. I like the idea that it looks vaguely medieval, but not too much. Still a modern sensitivity while at the same time like looking nice. I think they did a really good job with the layout because again these sheets have so much information, and I found that it was all very easily accessible, very very logical, very intuitive. So I'm very happy with Joan of Arc, Orleans, Draw and Write. I'm gonna recommend it for mid-weight gamers, and definitely without any reservation for 1 player and 2 players. Above that, well, you'll tell me what your experience is and if downtime becomes a problem. But with 1 or 2 players, definitely a very enjoyable game. Joan of Arc, Orleans, Draw and Write.